Everyone and their mum's, uncle's, cousin's dog is talking about the Kingdom Hearts 20th anniversary, and with good reason. It's great content strategy. Of the many things we can expect to be revealed, one of the things we are all extremely eager for is of course the reveal of a new Kingdom Hearts game. Now, if you saw my last video speaking about this year, I said that I actually believe we could get 2 games revealed rather than just 1, but I am certain, if nothing else, we will be getting at least 1 game announced. I do believe we will be getting at least 1 more side game based on this image, where we can see that there is still 2 boxes left to be filled for phase 2. I still have no idea what these boxes below are meant to mean. Maybe it's some other media like an anime, manga, or even novels, I don't know, but I don't personally think that those will be games. I've already covered what I think would potentially be shown at the event, and I still think that phase 2 will end with Kingdom Hearts 4 because I mean, how else could it really end? And from the title of this video, you can see that I'm pretty adamant about the very next game in this series not being Kingdom Hearts 4. Now, maybe that's a hot take. Perhaps you're wondering, next gen, what have you been smoking to make such a statement? But don't worry, by the time I'm done explaining this, I'm sure you'll see where I'm coming from. Or maybe not. So, we all know that the next game in the series will be the penultimate title of phase 2. Whatever that game is, I personally believe it's something that needs to not just be able to stand up against the other games that are currently releasing, but something that really progresses the story throughout the entire game rather than shoving most of it all at the end. This really shouldn't be that hard to accomplish because that's what Kingdom Hearts has traditionally always done. But if we're being honest, phase 2 has been lacking in terms of being traditional since it's consisted of a DLC, 2 mobile games and a rhythm game. So I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking that having at least 1 spin-off game that can be phase 2's Birth by Sleep or Dream Drop Distance if you will, would certainly be welcome at this point. Now you might ask, well, why can't that game just be Kingdom Hearts 4? Well, it's not that it can't be Kingdom Hearts 4, it's more just that I think it shouldn't be. Besides the fact that the next game will not be the final entry in the phase, and I think the final game should be Kingdom Hearts 4, as well as the fact that Nomura has already gone on record saying that something has to be made before Kingdom Hearts 4, which I'm pretty sure is what this slot is meant to represent. There's a few other reasons why I don't want it to be the very next game we get, but there is one reason above all others. Now I will just say now that I do believe it's possible the next game will be Viren Rex, as I've already said before, but I would like to offer my alternative idea of a game, and one that personally I think would be ideal if we don't end up getting Viren Rex, and that is an entire game focusing on the Guardians of Light, and yes, with all of them being playable. Now in terms of time frame, I think it could start with the Guardians following their tasks searching for Sora during the 1-year gap between Kingdom Hearts 3 and Remind, before flowing into the events following Melody of Memory, and then leading into what I would imagine would be Kingdom Hearts 4. Now, one way they could do this is to let you pick which group of characters you'd like to play from the start, basically like how they did with Birth by Sleep. Alternatively, and personally the option I'd prefer if they did this, would be to make it a lot more seamless, and instead of picking, you play whichever characters the game cuts to, similar to how one of my favourite games, Nier Automata, done it. So perhaps you'd start with a prologue playing the Wayfinder trio in the Realm of Darkness during the 1-year gap, and then something goes terribly wrong there, and then let's say we cut to Kairi, who is unable to train with Aqua because she's not returned from the Realm of Darkness, and so now she has to go on her own journey, and between that we have the Days trio uncovering clues about Subject X, and Mickey encountering the Foretellers, blah blah blah, you get the idea. The point is, I think a game entirely about the other Guardians would be perfect, especially considering there's so many other characters with their own important plot threads. Since there's a slot for a whole new game, why not make it be a game about them? But my biggest reason for wanting a game like this really is because I want no Sora. Yes, that's right, no Sora. I want a game that doesn't have Sora in it at all. Not that he's not mentioned, not that we maybe don't even see an illusion or a memory of him, but I mean that we're not following his story throughout this game, and that he is most certainly not going to be saving everyone. This is indeed one of my sore points with Kingdom Hearts 3, and a common one amongst the community. A lot of people feel as though other characters were shafted to give more spotlight to Sora, and I'm in agreement with that. The Keyblade War segment in Kingdom Hearts 3 is of course the clearest example of what I'm talking about here. Sure, the characters were able to hold their own, but until Remind dropped, we weren't even able to play most of these characters in the game at all, and even at the times when we did, it wasn't very much, and instead of resolving their conflicts themselves, they basically needed Sora to help them to do it. Now, I wasn't entirely too upset with that because I still saw Kingdom Hearts 3 as the end of the Dark Seeker saga and it was a number title, so it made sense Sora had a lot of focus. But I'm not going to keep making that excuse for the series forever. We all know that Sora the Saviour is awesome. We know that he can swoop in and save his friends, and whilst I appreciate the fact that that does loop back in on itself with his connections with his friends being the very thing that gives him the power to save them, ultimately it does still feel to me like he's mostly the saviour. I can accept that for what we've had so far, but with Nomura's words promising something of a change of pace for the series going forward, I'd really like it if for just once we got a game where Sora wasn't there at all beyond a memory or mention. Kingdom Hearts 3 ended with Sora disappearing, and since then everything with the Guardians has been geared towards saving him and bringing him back. But again, these characters have their own unresolved struggles and issues, and little do they know, their problems are only just beginning. This loss of Sora should be felt by not only the audience, but the characters and perhaps even the entire universe of Kingdom Hearts. The slogan of Phase 2 is an oath to return, so allow us to feel the weight of that oath. Let us fill the void Sora's absence creates in the hearts and minds of his friends. Without the boy who touches so many hearts, the one who can set things right, how will these characters manage to navigate the oncoming threats? If the Wayfinder trio has to face their fears in the realm of darkness, that's a conflict they should endure together and resolve together without any outside interference. Kairi should handle her own struggles in the realm of light, just like Sora and Riku did, if she is to be considered on their level as a wielder. And I'd love to see what new things the Days Trio will get up to now that they finally have their own existences, especially Roxas and Xion, who no longer are defined by Sora and are indeed their own persons. Lee and Isar have their own potential storyline of finding Subject X that can tie into the Days group anyway, and the Subject X plotline itself is something I'm personally very interested in seeing develop. Now, it's already a big meme in the community that everyone is Sora, and whilst it may not literally be the case, in a sense everyone has so far been somewhat defined by him. Even now, their entire purpose is built around saving him, which makes sense, but in their endeavours to do so, I'd like to see their story split off into non-Sora related territory. And you know what? Maybe I'm a bit biased, because whilst I do love most of the games in the series, in terms of story, Birth by Sleep is my personal favourite and the story of Days is right behind it, and those games focus on the stories of brand new trios. So I guess it's no surprise that my idea of the ideal next game is, well, a game focused on trios. I just think witnessing these characters we've all grown to love over the years actually have to face the challenges ahead of them without any possibility of Sora stepping in would be extremely refreshing, especially considering in all the games where Sora wasn't around to save everyone, everything basically went to shit. Even if everything does go bad to some degree anyway, I'll probably be fine with that so long as it comes down to those characters being the main ones to resolve it later. In essence, I just think since Sora is meant to be gone, it would be good if we got to actually feel like he was gone rather than jump into the next game and immediately we're saving him or we're playing as him again or whatever. I think it'd be a lot better to have an entire game just like we had with Birth by Sleep and Days where we are not playing as him. And yes, I know that the mobile games are basically like that, but again, they're mobile games. I want a game that's more of a traditional Kingdom Hearts game, one where we're not just trying to watch through the cutscenes and skip through the gameplay, something we can experience from start to finish and enjoy and really get into, but it doesn't have to be built around Sora. Again, he's always going to be one of the main glues that holds everything together, but he's gone. So what happens when that glue's removed? How do people hold it together now? That is something I would like to experience in an entire game by itself. Despite the title of this video, I'm not so much making a case against Kingdom Hearts 4 being next as much as I'm making a case for the Guardians getting their own game where we can experience what it's like not having Sora with them. I just think it makes the most sense for that to be what comes up next, if not a Virum Rex game. Since I would imagine Kingdom Hearts 4 would be the game where we have to deal with unreality, no doubt we'll be introduced to a bunch of new places and faces, and potentially even new gameplay mechanics and things of that nature. I basically just want the next game to, in some shape or form, focus on allowing all these other characters to resolve some of their lingering plot threads completely by themselves, while also allowing us to experience a Sora-less reality. So that's my thoughts on what I think would be a good idea for the next Kingdom Hearts game. And look, it doesn't have to be exactly as I've said, but I do think the series is in a very unique place right now, and that should be capitalized on. Of course, feel free to share with me whatever ideas you have for what the next game should be, but of course nothing that we say will change anything, because whatever the game is, it's likely going to be revealed very soon. But until then, my name is NextGenNovelist, and that's all I've got to say, and I'm out. Peace.